I believe 100% get impacted. Now they might not smile back, but then they might start thinking something like, wow, look at that person noticing me. Because a lot of us go through life feeling like nobody notices us. We don't matter. We're throwing in our life and our energy and our dreams into this churning thing, and we just never get any recognition. What's it all for? And when we look at each other, like I see you. You matter. You belong here. There's a purpose for you. So from that moment, I'm like, you know what? Every single thing you do is amplified. Everything. If you're checking out at the grocery store and you make eye contact and you are your best version of yourself with that person because they matter, that is going to be amplified. If you ignore that person or, whatever, blah, 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 that's going to be amplified. Because we're connected. And it's like we take the energy and we just give it to the next person or next several people. So that's why, I've heard from a lot of people, my book, like, wow, some people get scared. Like, this is scary, because I will say that this whole book is designed to get to the parts of you that are protected by the guards. It's not coaching. It's not like, hey, we're gonna do this thing to get it done. It's like when coaching fails, when therapy fails, when all your efforts fail, and there's some deep resistance that you're butting heads with. This is designed to go past the guards into that part, liberate it, and bring the fractured pieces of ourselves with their superpowers back into integration. And that's why everything gets easier. You don't have to white knuckle it.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter yet again. Another great author. I'm on her website. It's gorgeous. If you like butterflies, you're going to always love this. Whitney Riley's on the podcast. We'll be talking about her journey as an author and all the things she does in this world. She shows up for people. She helps you get centered and calm. And when you're having a day when technology and things are not at its finest, it's great to talk to somebody who is amazing in what she does. So, Whitney, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's exciting to have you here. You're surrounded by a wall of books. I can see beside you. So why all the books? Why not little trinkets and tchotchkes and things? Why are books so important to you? They're everywhere.
They are. I think books have been my lifeline. I started out kind of rejecting the book a little bit because I'm dyslexic, but was not ever diagnosed until college. And by then it's like, I know there was something. But like my mother read to me as a child, loved books. But then my dad said this really important thing that in the moment I was like, yeah, you're my dad. If you read 15 minutes a day, you will be amazed at what you will learn. And the direction wasn't like, hey, you should only read this, or, it was just like, open yourself up to, look at the history of books. They're precious. They hold so much information. And in my journey, I'm taking this another step, but in my journey, I kind of found an alternative path through some pretty grim, difficult, dark moments, a lot through books and also the, talks that the authors would host here and there. So, books.
I was on with an author yesterday, and she said, my mother was my very first librarian.
Aww.
And I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? Because her mom just had books everywhere. And the one thing we said at the end of our talk together, our recording, was she's a new author. Her first book just came out. And I said, and she had on behind her, she kept referencing, there's a specific shelf behind her of all of her mother's cherished books that she has. Her mother is now gone. And that really brought her joy to have this shelf of books. I said, when we're done here, I would love for you to take the book you just showed us and put that on your book on her shelf as part of her cherished books. And she's like, I kind of like starting to get a little teary and stuff. I'm like, well, it's true. You have something now that you can share with your mom, even though she's not here with us. But I think your book belongs on that shelf. And she's just like, thank you. Like, thank you. Like, I didn't think about it, but yeah, I like that. So that's something that I think we need to remember, that our books are our legacy as
Yeah.
well, right? It's our opportunity to share our voice, to get in front of an audience and help somebody. Most likely, many of our books, even if it's just going to make somebody
Right.
laugh, our books are going to
Yeah.
help somebody, right? So for you then to become an author now, how does that all fit together? Like, when did you go from being a reader to being, you know what, I think I can do this. I can write a
I
book.
think along the way, I've always been trying to write books. Like I would do a report and then hand in this giant thing that where I made covers out of wood and just ridiculous, And I'm sure that like there was
Wow.
not like, oh, this poor teacher now has to lug around this ridiculous creation. But I think that love of books, that legacy is also the love of books, right? And connecting. And what you gave that author, I think, is a cherished gift to then connect to her mother, even though she's gone, right? Anyway, I wanted to comment on that, but so
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
the kind of creative books I've been doing all along, and then a few years ago I did a booklet called Emotional Souffle, and it was just a little bit of the method, more focused around just one part, EFT, and then how do you make this tool, this very powerful tool that helps us survive or become better, accessible like aspirin, right? So the book isn't steeped in information like the new one that I just published. So it's like a booklet, a little reference book, and it's very colorful and creative. So it was like the bridge between the creative books I used to make, a little bit of information, but the power to hand somebody a tool without getting into the how-tos, the
Yeah.
whys. Is just like pick three emotions, do this, you will lower your cortisol. And it's a beautiful book filled with art and lots of emotions and their definitions, so you can find your right emotion. And now this
Wow.
one is the
I
book.
love
It
it.
is, I think, that little hamster spinning on a wheel going, one day I'm going to be an author, but I don't know how, or, where am I going to get there? Is it going to be fiction? Is it going to be this, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of a big deal. It's a new place to be.
Who inspires you as an author? Is there somebody you look to and go, I love the elements of how they work, how they craft their words and how they write? Is there anybody on that wall of books beside you that you're like, there's somebody here that just I identify with as an author that kind of
That's a
inspired
great
you?
question. I think there are little pieces in each one, but funny enough, the one that stands tall and that just came out isn't really self-help or maybe how I would ever model my writing after, but Tolstoy.
Yeah.
I read the tome Anna Karenina at some point, I think like in my 20s. And for anyone out there who's dyslexic, they totally get that. That's like, oh my gosh. But that's just what I did. I stopped watching TV at some point. I realized that just was some time I could spend doing other things. And at night I would just read it. And that experience was so remarkable for me and profound, to use fiction, fact-based fiction to transform some ideas I had about the world. And fiction does that, in all different kinds of ways, but just and then I kind of researched him, and he's got some kind of cool political stuff, and he seemed like kind of this rebel, this vegan, this sort of, I don't know, maybe not a vegan, but a vegetarian for sure. So I was like, Tolstoy is just awesome, So he definitely
Good.
created the power of word on a page for me in a way like I'm not sure any other author has.
That's interesting because, like, from my perspective, I'm a musician, and when I look over my music, I can see elements of different artists. Like, I love the style that they do this, and I love the drummer. I like how he plays, and there's little bits of how he approaches music that I like, and the keyboard and piano player, they're really good at this. And all these elements are like these 7 herbs and spices type thing. They're all part of
Yeah.
the recipe that makes my music, right? Little elements of all these different pieces. That if I put them all
I love
together,
that.
that's me. That's kind of how I spin it and how I collect it. So I think authors have a little bit of that, little of this, a little of that, and then it just sort of shows up naturally because they influence you. There's something about what they do that just naturally through osmosis just kind of
Yeah.
happens, right? Because it's all part of who you are. So yeah, I think that's kind of nice to unpack who inspires you. That's kind
I
of
think,
interesting
yeah, but
path
I
to
think
walk.
also, so, you're unique, right? No one will ever be
Yeah.
created like you ever in any direction in the history of time. Like you are you. And this is your one moment to be in this DNA package of you. And I think those bits and pieces come,
Yeah.
right? And then we filter them through all of that to become what we are, right? So it isn't just like it's the alchemical thing, right? All those spices, like you said, a little bit of drum, a little bit of this,
Yeah.
you put them in the
Yeah.
stew, and then it magically turns into this, Dave thing or Whitney
Yeah.
thing, or
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the coolest parts of becoming yourself, right? Going from, like Picasso. No, not Picasso.
Yeah.
Jackson Pollock. He used to do
Mm.
rolling landscapes like his mentor. And it took him 7 years after he was introduced to this automatic painting to then break the mold
Mm.
and become this, person that most people know if they know art. So
Yeah.
he
Right.
found his magic recipe, right? But it takes time. It takes time.
So a young author, a new author that's listening, Whitney, and they're like, well, who's ever going to read my book? Like, who would ever be interested in what I have to say? And they're wrestling with that. They really have a passion to write, but there's this big obstacle in front of them that they just don't feel they can climb over, that nobody really cares what I have to say. Using that uniqueness you talk about, that we're all so unique, can you talk to that author and encourage them that this is a path that might be really rewarding for them to start writing, like really pursue it?
Yeah. And so many little images pop up. I think I would say you need you first. So not to go on this long tangent, but you are on your journey. And at the end of it, do you want to know you wrote the thing that wants to be written? So number one, you need you. Don't not do something because you need somebody else, right? Because, in art and creation, we do 50%, right? It's only 50% done in music and crafting, right? And until you're able to take what you've decided to do, judgment or not, the other 50% is sharing it. Right? So that's like just the process, I think, of creating. And that's kind of my global vision, but do you for you. And, that can include how you want to impact the world, what you want to give to the world, how you want to interact, but you will never have control over that other part. Right? So, if we do it for an outside source, sometimes that changes our voice and our message. Right. So that would be like number one. Number two, you're necessary or you wouldn't be here. We're all necessary. And here's the thing. I believed that years ago, like, well, people are already doing transformational work. There are already coaches, guides, EFT, there's people doing stuff. There's no room for me.
Yeah.
If I hadn't somehow pushed through that, there would be hundreds of people still suffering right now, stuck.
Right.
I don't know if that is encouraging.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And I think, well, the one thing I'm thinking when you go back to you need you, is the fact that a lot of people write for an audience, then they're trying to find out who that audience is, and they get lost in the process. Write for yourself, like write the story that you know you need to tell. Instead of trying to find a story that matches the audience, just share
Right.
your story, because that's the one thing that no one else can
Right.
duplicate.
So do you want an audience that you have to then perform for on their standards, which will change over time because no human being is consistent throughout their life. We change, we evolve, we, get bored, or we, just a million things happen, right? Or do you want to create the book where your audience finds the person you are, and however you're going to change on your journey?
Yeah.
Just like if we're in a relationship, right? A lot of us are like, hey, I want to go get that relationship. And then we augment ourselves to be accepted. And then we're resentful of the other person that they won't accept us for who we really are.
I feel like you and I just kind of walked up and jumped into the deepest part of the pool. Bam. I'm like, yep. Those are listening. They're like, wow, we're already swimming. I didn't even realize today was swim day. All right, in. Everybody
You should put
in.
a note. Bring your
it.
floaties.
It's good. Caution. Yeah. This is great. Okay, so Whitney, I'm on your website while we're chatting. Talk us through this. Tell us more about the Meet Whitney part. I need to know more about you. There's people listening. They haven't met you yet. This is the first time hearing your voice. They're buying your book, obviously. They want to come support you, but they don't know you as well. We've had the chance to interact already. But tell us more about what you do, because, again, your website's beautiful, and I just want to bring people up to speed and get them caught up. How do you show up in this world? Why are you here?
Why am I here in this world? The way that I am right now comes from a lot of learning the hard way and rejecting some outcomes that seemed fairly certain that I didn't like. And just not to go into the details, my parents were sick and died early in my life in a very chaotic, not so great managed way. Had some brothers dealing with some heavy stuff. So I ended up holding the bag for all that. And kind of also laced to that, I went from one day being normal to having these like crazy episodes, thinking I was dying. This hilarious journey now in hindsight of like seeking medical help and getting yelled at, like there's nothing wrong with you. And just, seeing how we hide what's wrong in order to present ourselves as normal, but then we need help and we get caught in this thing. It's very difficult sometimes. For the diagnosis, I went into this strip mall after spending thousands of dollars in the strip mall. Like I just was driving by and I was like, and demanded a chest x-ray. I was like, I'm dying of lung cancer. I'm fairly certain no one will help me. And then I'm in this room and all of a sudden, like, all these white coats are around me and I start crying and they're like, can you fill out this form? And I did. And basically I was diagnosed with panic disorder. So it's like panic attacks or anxiety, but to such an extreme state that it is a disorder. And basically
Wow.
They handed me a case of like all these bottles of Zoloft, which is a SSRI or something like that, right? Neurotransmitter kind of application that lots of people, there's so many now. But anyway, I took it home kind of feeling defeated. At that point, my dad was still alive. And he then chronicled this history of anxiety in our family that no one had ever spoken of. No one. And it went all the way to his mother and who knows, right? Anyway, I get into the long story here. But so that happened. Just the mismanagement of total chaos. The Del Monte and sanatorium is what we kind of refer to it lovingly to after we all survived it. The survivors that walked away, right? And then the third one was a little bit later as I had moved through all of that holistically. I took one of those pills and threw the rest away. And it was rough. And anyone who's experiencing that, and I think a lot of us are to lesser degrees, it is a rough place to be in. Especially if you're dealing with bigger problems, right? That are outside of your belief that you can manage them. And then I got an autoimmune disorder. Yeah. That was unnamed and untreatable, except for just, go take some histamine blockers to maybe sort of manage it. And then that was the final sort of thing where I think the second time it happened, it was very disfiguring, unbelievably painful and random. Kind of these giant welts and like deep stabbing pain where you just like can't think. You have to sit down. Art show with this person who happened to be a 20 years survivor of stage 4 cancer. And she instantly dragged me to the self-help section of a bookstore. And I was like, no, I'm not doing self-help. My parents died. They were like totally into self-help, like no way. And I was like crawling on the floor, like, I don't even want to be seen here. And actually this book here, Louisa Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, was the book. She was like, oh, like, and I was like, this is a Looney Tune, like no way. But I did go, and it's like basically every kind of disorder, disease, there's like a thought pattern and a new thought pattern. So I wrote them on my hand, did not buy the books, like went away and like privately started experimenting. And then her friend just happened to go to an EFT, emotional freedom technique seminar. And the third time it happened, she came and did that with me. And I had taken those new things into this meditation that I had already had kind of designed for myself. And it went away. So, and there's so many little stories I could tell about the power of, I don't know, turning into finding yourself in some of the darkest moments. And that's why I'm here, really, is because we do not have to suffer. We do not have to feel spun out of control by the events that happen outside of us or inside of us, the way I think historically has been presented to us, just grind through, accept it, deal with it, bring yourself down a level,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The one thing I love while you're talking, that book is like, it's so close to where you are. Like, it's like you're right beside you. Your shoulder's almost touching it. It's like, and this is the book here, right here, that helped. And I'm like,
2 copies,
yep.
But I have bought so many copies of that book and given them to people, or people loan them out, and then they're like, yeah, I'm not giving it back. So I just keep buying them, and yeah.
How does it feel to possibly someday soon hear somebody say that of your book, that your book was the one that they wrote on their hand and didn't buy, and then came back now and gives it out to people, and there was something about your book that helped them? What would that mean to you as an author to have that exact same experience, but you be on the receiving end of that?
So we talked a little bit before we jumped on about something you said to an author that made her teary-eyed. You're 2 for 2 today.
It's interesting because I had somebody come on once and they said that they were really inspired by an author and they bought their book and they reached out to the author and they gave them feedback and they were there for them. And then later in the conversation, they basically told me the exact same thing happened to them, but they didn't put the two and two together. I'm like, okay, wait, remember that one author that inspired you when you were young? You just told me the same story that you as the author had the chance to do the same thing. Did you realize it's come full circle for you? And it was just like this moment of, no, I didn't put those together. And I'm like, well, there you go. Now you're the person that has given somebody hope where it was needed in the moment. And you were the only one to do that. So congratulations. Like, what a great moment.
Well, you just did that to me because I don't think anyone's scribbled it down on their hand, like the whole story, but several people have said that they've benefited. And I know the method, face-to-face, people have said it's changed my life. Like you, and I'll meet them 8 years later or 6 years later, and we run in and they're like, Whitney, you changed our lives. You changed our lives forever. And so it's interesting, we're holding all these thoughts in our minds, and it takes someone sometimes from the outside to go, excuse me,
hang on, hang on.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I love it. So take us through the book. When we're interested for people to know more about it. I'm looking at it here on my screen. Can you take us through what the book is, who it's for? We have listeners who are on the search to connect with a great new author. They're looking for that great summer read that's going to fill up their life. And they know people that this book is definitely going to benefit. Take us through the book. And again, we talked about why you're here. Let's talk about why this book
The book is here because, back to the thing, we don't have to suffer or stay away from our dreams. There is a lot of resistance that we don't even know that we're kind of interacting with on a regular basis. And resistance is basically pain in the form of physical, mental, emotional. We spin our wheels, we get nowhere. The book is a product of 12 years of this little brain baby I had, which is how do you help lots and lots of people in the most profound, biggest way? Because, one-on-one, we're able to do certain things. Like right here in this podcast, you're able to have a certain conversation that you couldn't have if there were, 10 or 100 of us here on the other end, right? So there's a certain part that gets watered down. And I think there's lots of good things in that, because sometimes we need baby steps. But my whole thing was, if we can move this quickly, we get to the good stuff more quickly, right? So how do you make that really impactful, powerful in a way that you can give to lots of people at the same time? And I grappled with that with my mentor originally, who believed it wasn't possible. And I tend to obviously not accept when people tell me, you have to take Zoloft to heal, or, you're just going to have this autoimmune disorder for the rest of your life. Because I don't have any of that, by the way. Not a shred.
Wow.
And the book is for anyone who kind of wants to see under the hood of why we get hijacked, to also see how often we're hijacked and we think we're being reasonable. And to go another callback to something we talked about, the past is over. It's not happening anymore, but our brain doesn't know it. Yeah. The amygdala cannot tell time. Yeah. If you're driving down a street and somebody looks at you a certain way that triggers a memory from 20 years ago when your brother looked at you, your sister, the teacher, and that some terrible experience, you start having it right there, right now, because your brain can take you back to that moment when it's unresolved, right?
Right.
Now, also the future, right? The ideas about, I'm going to be penniless, or I'm going to do this, or someone's going to judge me, or I'm going to write the book and no one's going to read it, right? And how we think that's going to feel takes over the present moment, right? We're hijacked. All of those things are hijacking us in this moment. You cannot change anything that happened in the past. You can't make the power come back on if it blips up on you, and you can't prevent it in the future if we're living in a world now where this is going to be the norm. But we can stop feeling okay right now because the things have happened to us in the past, and now we're worried about them happening again. And then we're constricted. Yeah. And our power, our energy, our flow, our laughter, our trust all diminish. And then that's not even the worst part. Then we resist that. And then we resist our own resistance. And we have to show up to life. And all of our energy is just managing this tiny little thing that now controls us. So it kind of goes into how that, why that, but you can skip all that if you don't care about that, because it's in parts, and go back, go to part 2 and just do the method. And it's listed there, how to do it, examples of somebody else, what it might look like. So you can not go, I read it, but now am I doing it right? So the book is for anyone who has a big goal, a big problem, or somebody who just really likes personal development, because it is not for somebody who wants to stay the same. it will
Okay.
move the needle. It's pretty powerful stuff. Now you could read it and not do it. And I guess it wouldn't be quite as powerful, but you know, I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Some of the feedback you've had then from your readers. What are you hearing back? What are people resonating
Um,
with?
I think one of the ones that just pops out, it's not actually that helpful, I suppose, but uh, they said they read it all the way to the end and that I should be really proud of myself. It was, and it's from somebody that I respect, who's, multiple intelligences and really kind of a high performer, and also comes from the jumbled up youth of alcoholism and becoming a survivor when
Yeah.
the odds are really stacked against you. And it just, that one, if I wrote the book and that was the one person who read it, it was worth it to go back to talking to your readers, or your guests your audiences. Okay, the right word.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
maybe are worried, why should I do this? What if you just impact that one person? You know?
You set me up, and there's going to be people that are going to go, oh, here goes Dave again with his little thing that he's fallen in love with. There's a quote that I really love that speaks to what you just said about that one person, that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. And I'm like, the unlimited potential of one seed, you can't measure how many apples that seed is going to produce, right? So when I know in podcasting, I know in music, I know as authors, we create content, we put something out into the world, and we want it to do well. We want people to love it. We want to sell a billion books and help a billion people. That's our joy. And then in the early days, maybe we don't see those kind of results, and we're like, oh, it wasn't what I was expecting. I wish I was more successful. I wish I had more reach. I wish I sold more books, some more music, whatever. More people come to my show. Oh, there's only this many people here, right? You're just like, oh, I feel like I failed. But what if that one person truly found something special about what you put out into the world, and it's changed their trajectory in life? The book next to you, had that author never written that book, we might not be talking. We probably wouldn't. Right? So there's unlimited potential in the one. So don't worry about a small number as a result, because that one person could have something that's going to change their family, and that family member changes that whole course of the future of that family. The history is changed because of one thing that came from you. Yep. So revel in the fact that you have the opportunity to change the future for somebody. And that's got to mean more to you than a million books. Again, we would love to have a million books sold.
Well, but a million books amplify that impact of that one person, right? Because we're all connected. You've brought up two different things. Let's see if I can keep them both in my mind. One is this kind of experiment I did years ago, probably, 15, 18 years ago, where I used to jog in this 3-mile loop. There was a couple of them, or walk. And I decided that, the butterfly effect, right? Whatever happens a million years ago, where, it's still happening. And I was like, if I can spread joy, I'm just going to smile at every single person that is coming in opposite.
Yeah. Right.
And I did it for quite some time. And I think the percentage was less than 1% smiled back. And I was so irritated because I was like, in that space where one person, which leads me to the second point, one person can amplify their change and it changes the whole world. If one person gets better, one person crawls out of the darkness without succumbing to it, one person starts creating, one person feels okay just being themselves, you've changed the world. The world is better. It is quantifiably better. And then that person is going to butterfly effect their betterment, right? So back to the thing, I was pretty disappointed. I was mad that my, hypothesis was dead wrong, in my opinion, at that moment. I was a little jaded. I was a little grumpy. I was like, maybe people are just unwilling to be what I believe they are, whatever. All the stories started going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one day I'm walking around or something and I'm thinking and I'm doing the thing that we do when we walk or run, right? And somebody smiles at me.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I smiled after they had already passed me. They didn't see, me smile back. Well, that was me. I realized they didn't see me smile. And I went,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
We don't always see the impact.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it because it's there. It's really happening.
That's so wise. That's so wise.
Right?
Yeah, like what's the point if nobody's going to give me response in the moment? But what if they're like, that was weird. That person smiled at me. Oh, I feel so happy now. All that interaction never happened. But what if 99% of the people responded after the fact? And 99% of the people were better than not one smile.
I believe 100% get impacted. Now, they might not smile back, but then they might start thinking something like, wow, look at that person noticing me. Because a lot of us go through life feeling like nobody notices us. We don't matter. We're throwing in our life and our energy and our dreams into this churning thing, and we just never get any recognition. What's it all for? And when we look at each other, like I see you. You matter. You belong here. There's a purpose for you. So from that moment, I'm like, you know what? Every single thing you do is amplified. Everything. If you're checking out at the grocery store and you make eye contact and you are your best version of yourself with that person because they matter, that is going to be amplified. If you ignore that person or, whatever, blah, 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 that's going to be amplified because we're connected.
Yeah.
And it's like we take the energy and we just give it to the next person or next several people.
Yeah.
So that's why, I've heard from a lot of people, my book, like, wow, some people get scared. Like, this is scary, because I will say that this whole book is designed to get to the parts of you that are protected by the guards. It's not coaching. It's not like, hey, we're gonna do this thing to get it done. It's like when coaching fails, when therapy fails, when all your efforts fail, and there's some deep resistance that you're butting heads with. This is designed to go past the guards into that part, liberate it, and bring the fractured pieces of ourselves with their superpowers back into integration. And that's why everything gets easier. You don't have to white knuckle it.
Is there a purpose for the butterflies on your website and on the book? Because I think you've kind of explained it. If that's the connection as we talk through this, is that why they're on the cover?
Absolutely, butterfly effect. But also, years ago, kind of when I started and I was meditating on what is my tagline, right? Just super unconventionally, I think, all across the board, and it came up that the caterpillar was always the butterfly. Like we already have what we need to be where we want to be, right? The potential of the butterfly is born in the caterpillar. But the caterpillar is believing the story, or actually caterpillars probably don't because they just evolve, right? They accept and then they break out of the chrysalis and become the butterfly, right? Yeah. But that metamorphosis, that change is in us. We, and gestation is part of the process, right? And I think in some transformational worlds, you talk about like while the little caterpillar is in that cocoon chrysalis, they like liquefy, like they completely transform the picture. And, now we're kind of steering a little bit into the woo-woo, like manifestation, things like that, but it is not woo-woo. The concrete science of it is like, if we tell the story from what we can see, right? I'm the
Yeah.
caterpillar. So therefore, being the butterfly is outside of my reality, right? I have to do something, be
Right.
something, or be accepted in some way before I can be the caterpillar, right? And if we keep telling that
Yeah.
story, we prolong the caterpillar, right? Because we believe in the evidence of it, right? But in the creation of all things, nothing was ever created, ever. Not one thing without the idea of something new first. And then believing in the picture that isn't here yet and creating it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Like we used to
Yeah.
sit on rocks, and then one day somebody was like, hey, I wonder if we can create something we can sit on that maybe it's a little easier to move around, right? I wonder what that would look like.
Right.
It had to be a picture, right?
Yes.
But then it happens. And so when we believe in the butterfly version of ourselves, whether it be the author, we finally, cross that bridge. And here's the deal, you're going to write the book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be the book you write. It might not be the best book you ever write. Maybe it is the best book you've ever write, but you're never going to write the next book or the next version of that book until you write the book now. The first line of my book is like, read along and let me show you how you're already perfect. And yeah, we all scoff at that, right? But you're perfect. I'm perfect. We could be broken piles of like rickety bones, barely hanging on. And that is perfect. Perfect is never, ever,
Yeah.
ever outside of you. It is never outside of you. It is always inherent in you. We're just looking for the next perfect moment. And the quickest way to get to that moment is to bring that inside and go, yeah, this is perfect. What next? And that is how the butterfly, transforms over and over and over again in our lives.
Yeah.
This is great. Whitney, I love having you on the podcast. Take us to the website. Take us to where we can get our own copy of your book. I think this is something that we all need to have on our shelf within like inches of our shoulder, as you mentioned, so that it's right there at hand as soon as someone asks, oh, Whitney's book right here. There you go. So how do we do all this? How do we get our own copy, and how do we connect with you as well?
Startyourbetterlife.com is the website. It's got all the clicks that you can join my little tribe. I'm not great about sending out newsletters. I know that's a lot of people crave that. I'm, working on how to do that without bugging people. Like I want it to be something positive, right? Instead of about me. And so that's all kind of in the works, but you could always send me a message through there. And, I get back and schedule a call, and I do complimentary calls with everybody to help them get through. If they have questions with the book or just where they are in their life, love to support people. I definitely believe in, not having to commit your soul to somebody in order to get a little piece of information. You know what I mean? We're all in this together. And then you can buy the book there, or you can just go to Amazon and put in Make Everything Easier by Whitney, and it'll pop up pretty easily.
One thing you've demonstrated in our chat today, Whitney, is how you are living your next chapter, which is a shameless plug for my podcast name. I get to say that out loud, which makes me happy.
Say it again.
Everyone is living the next chapter. So how are you living your next chapter? The book is done. It's in the world. People are loving it. What's your next chapter? How are you living
the next chapter, the whole idea of the book was then to create these groups to invite people to, which I've done in the past, and they've been very successful. And it's funny that I haven't really leaned into that. So the next chapter is figuring out how to serve people that are interested in ways that are really accessible. To sign up for the whole shebang, the 12-week class, although it's 36 hours of your life and you will never be the same again. It's like blowing out all the cobwebs, right? Emotional detox. But that's a big commitment, right? So the next chapter is like, I wonder what this, and who knows, maybe some of your listeners who read the book, or I would love to partner and know how to help people in a way that's accessible. The book is the first step, right? It's pretty easy to get a book and consume it. And then, the big group is kind of a bigger commitment. One-on-one is a little bit more than that. in terms of intensity, right? Like you're one-on-one, right? You're in the
Yeah.
spotlight the whole time.
Right.
So something in the middle. And that's kind of what I've been working on. Like, what's in the middle? That I can offer people that, earlier in the podcast, you're like, hey, we're in the deep end. We're swimming. We're the floaties. What's a non-floaty? And clearly you can see I'm a deep end of the pool person, right?
Yeah.
I saw my own mortality and I kind of lived from that place. I know I'm going to die. So tiptoeing into the water isn't my strong suit. But a lot of people need something in the middle.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you recognize that. That's good.
So that's my next chapter.
I love it. Okay, that's good, Whitney. This is great. I would love for everyone to go grab the book. Again, you know someone in your life that this would definitely be a resource. That the book on the shelf that's like within arm's reach that can help you on your journey. And Whitney's here, and I love the fact that you're willing to talk to your readers and be there with them and walk with them as well. That's a nice thing to know, that an author is that willing to spend time with us as readers. So thank you for offering yourself up to do that.
I love it. I love it so much. I love it.
It's great. Everyone, all the information for Whitney's in the show notes as always. And Whitney and I have powered through this podcast through all kinds of interesting things happening. And we are going to make this work. Gosh dang it. We're going to make this happen because we want people to know more about Whitney and her great journey. And I'm so grateful for you, Whitney, your patience to do all this and to make this happen and our conversation happen. I love talking to you and feel very inspired by your book and by you and your story. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for hosting this whole platform. You're wonderful and such a lovely host. I really appreciate.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Sure. Excellent. All right, everybody. All information is always in the show notes. Please go over and support a great author when you buy the book, because you will, and you're buying multiple copies. Please leave a great review as well so others can see why this book means something so special to you. It'll help them to decide that, yep, I need to unfurl my inner butterfly. And Whitney's here to help you with that. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.